January 8, 2026. South China Sea. On the deck of a US aircraft carrier, the morning begins with the roar of gunfire. The Phalanx CIWS fires a hurricane of tungsten rounds into the sky, shredding target drones mid-air. Deck crews move with rehearsed intensity as steam rises off the catapults. Just another routine exercise. Until the phone rings. Not just any phone. The secure line. A line reserved for only one kind of message. Global emergencies. The captain answers. A coded voice speaks only 5 words. Break off. Move immediately. Then the real order. Sprint to the Gulf. Not deploy, not adjust course. Sprint. Now, in an instant, training ends. The real world takes over. Everyone on the bridge feels it. Something in the Middle East has snapped. And the Pentagon needs the USS Abraham Lincoln there before it gets worse. But why Lincoln? With 10 other US carriers in existence. What made this one ship the only choice? The carriers they didn't send. Most people assume the US can send any carrier anywhere, anytime. But timing is everything. The USS George Washington was in Japan, too far north. The USS Theodore Roosevelt had just finished maintenance, ready but positioned poorly. The USS Gerald R. Ford, America's most advanced warship, was locked into a standoff off Venezuela, unable to leave without worsening that crisis. One by one, the Pentagon crossed names off the board. Only one carrier was in the right place, with the right air wing, at the right moment, the USS Abraham Lincoln. But geography wasn't the only factor. Something far more serious was escalating in the Middle East. Something that required a carrier ready for day one combat. The Pressure AT. The Strait of Hormuz. By January 2026, tension with Iran had reached a breaking point. For years, Iran had built missiles, hidden launchers, underground bunkers, swarms of fast attack boats, all designed for one mission: shut down the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage that carries 20% of the world's oil supply. If that strait closes for even a few days, global markets crash, oil prices detonate, and economies spiral. The Pentagon wasn't preparing for war, they were preparing to prevent one. And they needed a carrier that could punch through the most heavily defended coastline on Earth. There was only one ship with the crew, the endurance, and the firepower for that mission: Lincoln, the carrier that wouldn't break. The Lincoln wasn't chosen for convenience. It was chosen because of reputation. This ship once stayed at sea for 295 consecutive days, nearly 10 months, with no port visits, no breaks, no downtime. China's carriers last about 90 days. Britain's maybe 6 months. Russia's flagship hasn't left port in years. But the Lincoln? She endured. She fought. She operated non-stop at full tempo. There are aircraft carriers, and then there are ships that have survived things no others have. The Lincoln was the veteran the Pentagon trusted. The rebuilding of a giant. Between 2013 and 2017, the Lincoln underwent a $3 billion transformation. Not a repair, a rebirth. Technicians cut into the hull, removed the nuclear cores, ripped out almost every cable, and rebuilt the ship from the inside out. Fiber optics replaced old wiring. New sensors were added. Reactor systems were upgraded. But the most important change? The Lincoln became the first Nimitz-class carrier fully optimized for the F-35 Sea Stealth fighter, reinforced deck plates for its extreme heat, specialized data systems for classified missions, a digital nervous system built for fifth-generation warfare. When the Lincoln sailed out of dry dock, she wasn't old anymore. She was lethal. The crew that had seen real war 18 months before the sprint, the Lincoln faced the ultimate test. In the Red Sea, Iranian-backed Houthi rebels fired real anti-ship ballistic missiles. Aegis destroyers lit up. Threat tracks streaked across radar screens. Interceptors launched. The Lincoln's strike group destroyed the incoming missiles. For real. This was not training, not simulation. It was combat, and nothing prepares a crew better than surviving the real thing. So when the Pentagon needed a carrier that could fight on arrival without hesitation, they chose the crew that already had. The sprint begins. 2 nuclear reactors roared beneath the deck, driving nearly 100,000 tons of steel across 4,500 nautical miles. No fuel stops, no delays. 8 days from the South China Sea to the Gulf. Arriving tired was not an option, because Iran had a new weapon waiting. The radar designed to see the invisible. Iran deployed the resonance knee radar, operating on VHF wavelengths. Short-range radars can see stealth, but VHF wavelengths interact with the size of an aircraft's wings or tail, meaning Iran could detect the presence of F-35Cs, not target them, but sense them, and that alone could blindside a US first strike. But detection is only step one. Iran still needed high-frequency fire control radars to lock on. And that moment, the handoff between radars was the Achilles heel, a weakness the US planned to exploit. The electronic war, Growlers versus Iran, flying ahead of the air wing were the most dangerous aircraft Iran feared. EA-18G Growlers from VAQ-133 the Wizards, each carrying the ALQ-249 next-generation jammer. This wasn't simple jamming, this was digital warfare. Growlers locked onto the exact frequencies used by Iranian radars, then flooded them with ghost signals, false targets, and digital static. Iran saw dozens of phantom aircraft, hundreds of blips, a sky full of hallucinations. Meanwhile, F-35Cs flew silently, receiving the radar's own emissions, pinpointing sites without revealing themselves. Within minutes, the hunter became the hunted. The strike package. Once Iranian radars were blinded or overwhelmed, the Lincoln's stealth fighters designated targets. F-35Cs eliminated the long-range radar sites. Super Hornets delivered massed firepower. Destroyers fired Tomahawks inland. Command centers, missile sites, naval bases, all exposed and vulnerable. That's the power of a modern US carrier. It doesn't just survive the enemy's kill chain, it dismantles it. The defensive wall. But the Lincoln wasn't the only weapon on scene. 3 Arleigh Burke destroyers formed a shield around her. SM-3 missiles to intercept ballistic threats in space. SM-6 missiles to kill aircraft or fast attack boats at long range. Tomahawks to strike deep inland. All sharing radar data in real time. A missile fired at the carrier might be intercepted by a destroyer 40 miles away. Iran's strategy is saturation. Launch everything at once? But Aegis defenses classify, track, and assign interceptors in seconds. Iran knows HAT happens if they pull the trigger. Dozens of missiles launched, dozens shot down. Then the US retaliation begins. It's not deterrence by threats, it's deterrence by math. The message Iran couldn't ignore. As the Lincoln approached the Strait of Hormuz, an Iranian cargo vessel moved alongside, 2 miles off her starboard side. No weapons, no aggression, just cameras, recording everything. The Pentagon gave no orders. The Lincoln took no action. This was intentional. Iran needed to see 1 carrier, 3 destroyers, 75 aircraft, 10 stealth fighters, hundreds of interceptors, unlimited range. They needed to see the exact force that would respond if they made the wrong move. And after reviewing that footage, Iran chose not to escalate. Sometimes the greatest victory is the war that never begins. The real reason Lincoln was sent, because when global stability hangs by a thread, when the world economy depends on one narrow waterway, when a single missile could trigger chaos, you don't send a ship that might be ready. You send the one ship that has survived live missile fire, stayed at sea 295 days, been rebuilt for stealth warfare, a combat-proven crew, an F-35C air wing, unlimited nuclear endurance. The USS Abraham Lincoln wasn't the closest carrier. She wasn't the newest. She wasn't the flashiest. She was the most trusted. Her motto, shall not perish. And in January 2026, that motto meant, global trade shall not perish. Freedom of navigation shall not perish. Stability shall not perish. Tonight, in the world's most dangerous waters, 5,000 Americans stand watch so the rest of the world can live their lives without fear of collapse. That is deterrence. That is power. That is presence. And that is why the United States Navy rushed the USS Abraham Lincoln to the Persian Gulf.